The Lions have not lost back-to-back games since October of 22, when they lost 5 straight, okay? Of the 10 games, this is from Dave Burkett of the Free Press, of the 10 games they've played since, and the losses during that span, they've won 8 by double digits and an average margin of victory of 18 points per game. I love statistics, sometimes too much. Kool-Aid is nodding his head vigorously, all right? I do. I love numbers. There's a reason for some of those numbers. I don't believe in numbers where the Tigers in 2025, they have now won 12 of the last 13 against the White Sox. Well, a lot of those guys aren't on the team anymore, you know. But this is relevant because Jared Goff is the trigger and because Dan Campbell's the coach, and they've got similar personnel, Taylor Decker and for some others. Yeah. When you haven't lost back-to-back games, you were talking about the belief in a guy like Baker Mayfield earlier. I would think the Lions feel pretty confident in believing in what they're going to do tonight, knowing that statistic that has been shoved down their throat all week long by members of the media too.
Yeah, 100%, because I think what the Lions have done is the reason why they haven't lost back-to-back games, once they lose a game, they come back to the drawing board, which is Allen Park. They watch the tape. They figure out what they did wrong, and they correct it. And then they have a different type of emphasis that following week in practice. I believe that after you lose a game like they did against the Kansas City Chiefs, practice is more serious. It's not as lackadaisical. Guys aren't joking as much. Guys are paying attention to the formations. Guys are paying attention to the adjustments. Guys are paying attention to just the energy and making sure that everybody is on the same page. I think there's more film watched that week. I think there's more of an emphasis on, clean football, disciplined football is what you'll see from the Detroit Lions tonight at home. It's a home game as well that always plays well for them. I think you just go back to the drawing board. Like, I've been in some teams where you lose some games and you don't even know how you lost the game. Like, you may lose a game to a less than opponent. You just didn't play your best game, started off, interception, you got behind, never got a chance to get any rhythm about yourself. Or you just had a game where you just made a ton of mistakes. Interceptions, offsides, MAs, shooting yourself in the foot, missed field goals and open spots. And so you lose the game that way. However, when you come back that following week, when you're a good team, see, the Lions are that. They're a damn good team with a damn good head coach. When you come back and you focus on those little things, you focus on the details, even from a coach's standpoint, like sometimes you can get away from the things that work for you. You can get away from the plays that you've had some success trying to do too much, trying to dial into this and dial into that. Sometimes you bring it all back to what works for us. What do we do? What are we good at? What's our identity? Let's rock and roll from that point. So that's why the Lions haven't lost that second game, because they come in like witches. And you're old school just like I. You know what that means. Somebody say, man, that man's a witch. That means he's great and he's a bitch at what he's doing. They're witches in the sense we're going to dial into this and we're going to get it right. But also it's an attitude from the whole team. It's not Dan Campbell trying to create this. Like, hey, we're going to be serious this week because we lost. No, this is Amon-Ra St. Brown saying, I'll be damned if we lose twice. Right. This is Jared Goff. This is Aiden Hutchinson.
It's a player-led team. Don't you think it's more of a player-led team?
100%, because Dan Campbell, as a former player, introduced the idea. Like, he let this be a player team as long as the players bought into what he was selling and as long as they did the things that they were supposed to do, and they have for the last 5 years.
Is there any concern on your part that this team looks at the bye week and says, I can't wait to get to the bye week and almost have some of those MAs more than we're used to and some of the little things that oftentimes allow them to win rather than lose?
I think with most teams you worry about that bye week. You know what I'm saying? All right, bye week's next. It's looming. I know guys are excited. Guys are trying to get to the bye week, maybe get past this game or so. But I just don't view that with the Detroit Lions. Like, one thing I've noticed about the Lions over the last 5 years, they spend majority of their time here in Michigan. Like, they leave a little bit. But those guys are back here early. Those guys come back in March.
So what's that tell you?
Those guys are here through July. That means those guys are working. That means their number one priority, their number one focus is Detroit Lions football and football, period. They don't care about the other stuff. Yeah, they do podcasts and all those things are cool and drip and that. Who doesn't? Yeah. You have to occupy your free space with your free time with things that you like to do. Those guys do that stuff here. Those guys are locked and loaded here. So I just think you got a team that lost last week against the Chiefs. And remember what Amon-Ra St. Brown said. Don't blame the refs. That's going to be That's going to be a very key piece of information. He said don't blame the refs. Like, we're not blaming the refs. We're blaming ourselves, which lets you know they don't believe they played a good brand of football last week. They could care less with the refs. Secretly undertone, they're going to take out what they feel about the refs on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, at least on the offensive side of the ball.
Saw more of it in the Kansas City game again over the weekend. I don't know if people were paying much of attention to it, but it was driving me crazy. Not that was the reason for the Raiders. But
I told you when they got the guys back, that team be dangerous. Especially now we know they cheat with the refs. Let's compartmentalize that
we
just
can.
for this conversation.
Yeah, we can.
That team is dangerous.
They are.
Especially
they're
on
good.
offense.
Yeah.
Raiders
stink, but you're right. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from the Chiefs. They looked really sharp, really sharp.
First time we saw Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Rashi Weiss on the field at the same time since they got signed before last season started. It looked dangerers.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt got hurt, but overall, that team's in pretty good shape. You had mentioned identity.
They like 24 better anyway.
Yeah, I know they do. Yeah, and I don't blame them. But you had mentioned identity with the Lions. The reason they don't lose 2 in a row, among the things you said, was because they go back to the drawing board, they watch film, they get back to their identity. We know what their identity was last year. You had talked earlier in the show about Michigan's identity, all right? Linebackers set the tone against Washington. The identity in the past had been, the offensive line. I think the identity of the Lions last year was offensive line. What's the identity, do we think, of the Lions right now?
I think the identity of the Lions right now is when you give Jared Goff protection, like, he'll pick you apart. And I think the Lions are using the pass to open up the run and more so runs on the outside. It's not the same exact identity. It is not mauling you up front. It's not the guys in the interior getting the runs going because you got big Graham Glasgow, Frank Ragnow, and then you have Kevin Zeitler just running guys through the middle, running between the tackles, and now you can play action pass. Now you can go on the outside and do the things. They're using the pass early on to get the run going, and then once they kind of back and forth, it's a hodgepodge type situation. Their identity is a little bit of a conundrum, if you will. I don't know what the specific identity is.
I'm with you 100%. Yeah. That's the reason I asked you. I'm having a hard time. Somebody this morning on my morning radio show asked me that. What is the identity of the Lions? I can't define it right now. I could define it over the last few seasons. I can't define it right now. Should I be worried about that? Do you think?
A little bit, okay. And we'll see what happens this game. I don't like the fact that we don't know that, but what I will say is they like to get up on teams early and force teams to make bad moves and make mistakes. I think they get up on teams, and that's also last year and the year before that. Now, they did it with the run game, but I think it's still that part. Get up on teams early, come out fast, strike while the iron's hot. You get up 10, 14, 14-3, 14-7, build some momentum. You do that, and then you force the other team to play behind and make mistakes on, their offensive side, and let your defense make some plays, whether it's a sack strip, fumble, interception at a pivotal point. Get up on teams early. Like, that's what they need to do against the Bucs. You got to get up early.
Yeah, I think teams, oftentimes when we identify teams, we look at one specific player on who that team is. I'll give you an example. You had mentioned San Francisco earlier and the importance of George Kittle. George Kittle made mention of it in the postgame show about Fred Warner was in attendance there and telling people, let's go, get him excited, even though he's out for the year.
Did you see his backup? 48?
I didn't. I was not paying attention.
10 tackles, a sack. He was everywhere. He looked like Fred Warner. You can tell he, in the sense of what he did for the game. I'm not disrespecting.
Be careful. You know how much I like Fred Warner.
Yeah, but don't get so sensitive about it. I'm more so saying he had 10 tackles. He had a sack. You know what I'm saying? He had a sack. Yeah. He balled in a place to where his physicality and the way he flew around, it inspired the other guys for the 49ers. And that defense played real well for them. That was more so what I was saying. Yeah. Like next man up mentality.
I love that. That has been the Lions mentality. What's the temperature in the room about Taylor Decker? Do we think he's playing tonight? I thought last week, by the way, you did a great job of explaining just how important he is to this team. Yeah. People look at left tackles and they're like, oh, he protects the blind side of the quarterback. Taylor Decker's a hell of a lot more important than just protecting Jared Goff's blind side. What's the temperature feel like if he's going to play, and how important is he to this team tonight specifically?
Yeah, they're the toughest position in the game, and that's the offensive line. They play through tremendous injury. They play through tremendous nagging, grueling pain, all this type of thing. I played with a guy named Ryan Tucker when I was in Cleveland. I played with 2 chips in his neck. He also had dislocated shoulder.
Oh, man.
And he also had torn ligaments in his ankle. Didn't miss a game that season.
Wow.
But this is an important game, and you talked about it 2 weeks ago when we found out Lee McNeil would be playing this game potentially. This is an all hands on deck if you can type game. This is number one Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are a beatable team. And we've seen that all this season in terms of the teams that have hung in there. Couldn't get it done with the exception of one, but they're a beatable team. They got some injuries, and this is a necessary game for the Lions. They're not trying to lose 2 in a row, especially one of those being at home. So Taylor Decker, he's your leader. He's a guy that leads. He's a guy that when you feel his presence in the huddle, okay, Big Taylor's in there. Jared Goff feels more comfortable. The offense feels more comfortable when you see one of your staples. He's the oldest tenured Detroit Lion, and he's the oldest guy on that offensive line. On that offense. I guarantee you, when he talks, when he's there, you feel that much better if you're Amon-Ra St. Brown. You feel that much better if you're Christian Mahogany. You feel that much better if you're Dan Campbell.